Hey, Miles Becker here, milesbecker.com, and today I've got two guests with me. I've got V and Ian. V and Ian run freedompodcasting.com, and Ian has put out a professional podcasting course on Udemy, and I've bribed them with hot tub access in the snow here in Lake Tahoe to come share a bit about podcasting. So real quick, before we get into it, I want to just give a quick catch up. And my whole bit on this channel is you need to be producing more than you're consuming. And if you like doing video, you're comfortable on camera, great. If you're a great writer, great. But if you're a talker and you're not comfortable on camera, podcasting is the answer. So V, Ian, welcome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for bringing us on your show.
Totally. Real quick, how did you guys get into podcasting? Where did that start, and what was your entrance point to that world?
I won an internship with Chris Ducker in the Philippines.
Awesome.
And then I went out there, he taught me how to do it, and then he introduced me to Lewis House. Lewis House introduced me to more people, and then before long I had like 6 people. I couldn't keep doing it. I had too many clients. And then, so when we started bringing on people, Veronica started managing the thing.
Got it.
That's how we did it.
So you grew a team around the service.
Right.
It started literally with just you,
Yeah.
kind of doing podcasting as a service.
Yeah.
And then you also have your own podcast as well. What's the podcast?
Yeah. It's called Love Affair Travel.
Love Affair Travel. There's a show with this guy on it.
Miles is a guest.
Definitely recommend checking out their podcast because it's kind of a digital nomad, create independence, lifestyle independence.
Adventure.
It's a lot about adventure, living
Location
weirdly.
independence.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what is it about podcasting that captured you? Like, you learned from Chris Ducker the skill, but at some point, did you ever just like, were you just, dude, this is such a great media? Like, you listen to podcasts a lot.
Yeah.
What is it about podcasts that are special to you?
I just, I like exercising and working. So when I was like in Australia, I would spend hours running on the beach listening to podcasts. And so I was able to just eat up a lot of them. So I got a good idea for what works, what doesn't as much.
Gotcha.
And so because I loved the medium, I think I was able to get into the production pretty rapidly.
Awesome. Yeah. And at this point, how many different podcasts do you think, like how many people's podcasts have you been a part of the production side of?
Oh, I would say
altogether.
About 30, 35 or something.
30 to 35. And I know you guys like keeping your client list confidential, which I totally respect. So we won't go name dropping, but there are some big names on your client list. So instead of name dropping, what about some number dropping? Like, if you were to estimate how many downloads the podcasts you guys have produced have reached.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Like, are we talking tens of millions? Are we talking hundreds of millions of downloads?
Easily tens of millions.
Got it.
Because we work with people who get a lot of downloads.
Insane amount of downloads.
Tens of millions would be obviously underestimate. So it's somewhere higher than that, but it's really hard to.
It's a crazy question, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird question. Yeah, because we do so many different shows. So
right.
And a lot of times the value isn't necessarily in the audience reach. It's like people that are in specific industries reaching out to specific people, and so sometimes it's like really small amounts of downloads.
So it's like the power of the niche.
Impactful podcast.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's almost, would you say it's like a expert positioning move for a lot of people?
Yeah, he knows about this.
Definitely. I mean, that sums it up perfectly.
So are there certain industries it works better for, certain industries it's not for? Or is this something that could work for everyone?
I think it would work for everyone. Yeah.
It totally depends. It's like you said, if you like talking, then podcasting's better. If somebody, sometimes you'll get people on your podcast who'll be like, what's your favorite rock climbing spot or something like that, and they'll be like, Mammoth. It's like, that person's not, no matter what they do, they're never going to be like excellent podcasters.
Right.
So it's about picking the medium that works best, and podcasting is really great if you're trying to build trust, I think.
Gotcha.
If you're trying to build deep engagements with audiences.
Gotcha. And how much technology is required? Like, how deep do I need to go? So I'm like, let's say I'm ready to go all in on podcasting. Is this going to cost me thousands of dollars? Like how deep do I have to go to actually kind of get off the ground?
I think like the ATR 2100 is a microphone that is less than $100. I think it's 80, and it sounds great.
Perfect.
You don't even need a studio at that point. A lot of people will get the 2100 and then build themselves like a box of like foam. You totally don't need it because the microphone's so good at picking up just what's right here.
Gotcha.
That that $90 microphone and a WordPress blog.
Mac computer.
Yeah.
Technically, you can do it on any computer, right?
Yeah.
Right. So they're the Mac fans, so I had to get that digging. I like that.
Yeah.
So literally, we're talking.
Miles like sees these things called What are they again?
What are they?
Can you remember?
I don't even know what they're called.
Bill Gates?
Yeah, Windows 10, something like that. So literally $100, $150 in technology, and you're able to go. And the goal is
$90. I think $90. If you
Yeah.
get that
$90.
ATR and just do the USB straight into your computer, I mean, your computer's going to cost however much, but yeah.
You don't even need a mixer.
well, everybody, generally speaking, who's watching this is going to have a computer. So, I mean,
Right.
literally, that's like the barrier of entry is there. So, there's no financial barrier of entry for someone to start kind of recording the podcasts. What would you say is an approach for somebody who wants to start a podcast? Like, should someone do, because most of this channel is just me just blabbing, right?
Yeah.
Like, for a podcast, is it better or does it matter if it's one person just kind of getting their ideas out? Should the interview process, is that a big part? Is that required? How should someone kind of like work with their content, or how does someone come up with a content kind of game or an idea for like a method for themselves?
Yeah.
Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. There's no rules. That's a great thing about podcasting. And if you have a business or service, if you want to do solo rounds and you just talk
To nobody?
to nobody
Or
everybody,
right?
that's great. And if you interview like other experts in your field, there's no rules and it all works. And we have clients that do both, and they're all really successful.
And you could theoretically do a little bit of each in the same podcast, right? Like
Totally.
For
one or
sure.
two episodes of just one to many, and then other ones interviewing.
And
Yeah.
I would add to that to say, like, is just start making recordings.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I find that is hard for us to get from people from going from knowing that they want to make a podcast to be actually producing and being good at it is the number of recordings. Think of it like if you're trying to get good at painting, what do? Make a bunch of
Practice.
paintings,
Yeah.
right?
Paint,
And so just
paint,
start recording.
Yep.
Record, listen to yourself. If you listen to yourself in an interview, one of the best ways to get good at interviewing is listening to yourself be bad at interviewing.
Right.
Until
You know?
you're good at it. Uh-huh.
Right.
If you're
Yeah.
interrupting people, you'll cringe when you see yourself and hear yourself interrupt people, and then
It'll
stop.
create triggers
He
for
did that
yourself.
a long
I
time.
used to do that all the time.
Okay. And so when you were listening to it, was that you editing it yourself, kind of going through the
Yeah.
editing process? Do you think it's good for a lot of people to kind of be that hands-on in their podcast getting going?
Just depends where you are in your business, right?
That's a
How
good
valuable
question.
your time is?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Because no, you shouldn't be. I mean,
If you're
You shouldn't
making
be going
$200-$300
through-
an hour, you shouldn't be spending time in a Audacity timeline or
Right.
in GarageBand editing.
because
Right.
it's going to take you four hours to go through one in detail. So,
Right. But if you're bootstrapping together and you're trying to build an audience on a shoestring budget and you can come up with money for a mic and that's all you have money for,
Yeah.
Yeah.
great exercise to kind of...
Oh, absolutely.
So in the
Sure.
editing process, what do you look for? Are you just kind of taking out like lip smacks and ums and uhs, or do you ever do major edits to like the content within, or how much?
Well, we do a lot with what we do, and so what's required is different than what our business is built around. And so, like, I don't know, I could say like the bottom line minimum, and then V could talk about what she does.
Okay,
What do you think?
kind of the higher level stuff.
Like, describe the process that we do for everybody.
So with the audio engineering specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it depends on the client as well, how picky they are. We definitely take out all of the... If they want the ums and ahs out, then we take the ums and ahs out. If we normally do silencing, and it just depends, but we make it sound... Normally, like, I don't even know how to actually explain it.
So it's basically like, because we have to listen through the whole thing, we need to make sure that there's no Skype outs, like there's not a break in the conversation, there's not a part where somebody says, oh, I don't want that in there. So we go through the whole thing, and then as we're going through, that's time that we're not just going to spend there listening. So we write out notes, we do search engine optimized blog posts, we make graphic design for them,
Gotcha.
we do all this stuff. So it's a whole... So for people who work with us, they get to just talk into a microphone, Dropbox it to us, and then they're done. And then their
Got it.
website's like built for them. And
Got
like,
it.
that's a huge deal, right?
Right.
But if you're just doing it on your own, I mean, you can just record it, export it as an MP3, and throw it up on your hosting.
And you can leave the ums, the uhs in there. You
Yeah.
can leave that kind of raw nature to it. So, like a podcast, I guess there's maybe a scale of production value.
Sure.
Like, and you don't have to be going for the best of the best scale, right? We don't have to do ultra
Yeah.
production value. It's okay.
Not everybody has to be This American Life. Definitely not. Like almost no one is, right?
But then
That's
you
like the top production one, or Radio Lab.
Yeah.
And then the bottom one would be like you record into your voice memo on your phone, and then publish that to your hosting. That would be the bottom. So those are the two radicals. Where 30 minutes takes 800 human hours, or you just record something in 30 seconds and have it up on iTunes 30 seconds later.
Right. And you mentioned the WordPress blog and the show notes. So in theory, a good podcast kind of game plan is also going to dovetail in with like an SEO plan and...
Maybe. Joe Rogan doesn't do any SEO stuff. His website's just his like embedded YouTube thing with like a media player underneath. So it just depends on how you go. But if you're trying to search engine terms, podcasting, if you read it out, then you've got something that you can use for SEO.
Gotcha.
Which we do.
And when someone's doing a podcast, I talk a lot about kind of like creating content in the way that the platform wants the content, right? So like right now this video is going on YouTube, for example. So we're crafting this in a way that YouTube wants. So when someone searches for something relevant, YouTube delivers it. What is that thing, or what is that platform that people are keeping in mind when they're creating podcasts? Like what's that big access point for the 80% of podcast listeners? Where is that?
It totally varies, right? I mean, it's comedian podcasts, and you've got interest podcasts, you've got history podcasts. Like, it's going to be so different for everybody. That's why.
But where do listeners access all the podcasts?
Oh, like iTunes or Stitcher or TuneIn. There's lots of different podcast apps, but iTunes is the 80% one.
Okay, cool.
80% of downloads. It's crazy. It's that 80-20 thing.
Exactly. So if you get iTunes to love your podcast, you're going to have a greater potential for growth within your podcast than if you just do Stitcher by itself.
For sure.
Totally. And another thing is in iTunes, the title tag and the author tag are the two ones that matter. Everything else almost doesn't. The title tag of the individual podcast, but then there's the title tag of the overall podcast. Title tag, author tag.
Gotcha.
That's all that matters. Even the description doesn't matter. So make your description solely focused on grabbing attention.
So the description is going to be written for the humans, for the actual person who's flipping through their phone looking for a new podcast.
Yeah.
But that title tag and that author name are what really have. And can you put things in for author name, like keywords?
So you could say like, this is the Miles podcast with authors like, Barack Obama, Vladimir Putin, so that you be the first one to pop up. Yeah.
So almost kind of a form of keyword stuffing into the author and the title tag just to get their algorithm triggered.
But don't submit your feed with that in there. Wait till it's approved, and then you can change it.
That's pretty gangster.
That's the
knowledge bomb. So then, so you want to submit it as a neat and tidy, professional-looking-ish podcast with a person's name as the author and a real title. Once it's submitted and approved, because Apple's neurotic about approving things, right? Yeah. Once it's approved, you can go in and change everything as much as you want without having to re-approve.
Right.
So
it's like the Trojan horse thing. But you also don't have to try to game the system. This is just for people who want to get that extra growth. Yeah.
True, and that's I think one of the things that we're our whole audience is into is kind of like how can I maximize the results with the effort I'm putting out. Yeah. And this is kind of one of those things. So is there a window of opportunity with Apple if someone has a podcast right now and they've been running it for 3 or 4 months? Going back in this optimization, is that going to help? Or is there benefit in kind of starting from ground zero and building this out in a certain way to get like iTunes to like, does iTunes like newer podcasts, older podcasts? What else does iTunes like as an algorithm?
Yeah, you know more about this right now than me.
Well, that's a great question. iTunes is changing all the time and it's hard to keep up, but we've noticed that putting out a lot of podcasts in a short amount of time, getting more downloads, you're getting more subscribers, and then you have a much better chance of making it to the top of like new and noteworthy, top podcasts, and what's hot, all those sections and categories. The more you put out in a shorter space of time, better the chance of doing that. But also, it has changed a lot recently, and we've noticed that it's taking a little bit longer now. So if you're being really consistent, it is taking a little bit longer to actually for shows to be boosted to the top of these categories.
Gotcha. Yeah. And you said there was a new and noteworthy. Like, what's the time frame? Like, at what point is someone not new anymore, and when are they? 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, year?
Yeah, I mean everybody used to say 8 weeks, and that was kind of accurate. And then, but then at the same time, new and noteworthy sometimes fills up with shows that have been there for years.
Right.
So the answer is Nobody knows. I think it's probably hand curated, but I don't think anybody knows.
It
Gotcha.
is hand curated.
And it's based on
Yeah,
certain
I think
variables
so.
like the download velocity, the number of likes, the number of reviews,
Yeah.
all of those little factors.
Ratings
I've
and
noticed
reviews
downloads
also.
is the biggest.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's the one.
Subscribers.
Subscribers is important, but subscribers is a derivative of downloads, right? If
Right.
you have 100 subscribers and you put out a podcast, you get
100 downloads instantly.
downloads or more. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then when you have a new client in, the goal, if I'm kind of interpreting this correctly, is to help that person get as many downloads in as short of a window of time.
Yeah.
So you maybe publish more podcasts kind of more frequently to get going and then taper off towards the end. Do you have like a
Correct.
schedule or kind of like a launch sequence that you would normally do?
Yeah, we normally do 3 episodes for the first 2 weeks, and then 2 episodes for the next 6 weeks, and then we go to 1 episode a week or 1 episode bi-weekly.
Gotcha.
So we try and
So it's
Stick
3
to that
episodes. So 3 episodes week 1, 3 episodes week
Week
2,
two.
and then 2 episodes. So every 3 or 4 days, a new episode for 6
6
weeks,
weeks.
and then you hit your long-term pace.
Uh-huh.
So you kind of sprint at the beginning, and then you get into your marathon pace towards the end. That's
Yeah.
awesome. How much do you usually require people to have, or like, if I could flip that around to the listener here or to the watcher who's going, so they want to do this and they want to kind of aggressively go at the launch. How much should they have in queue before they submit that to iTunes? I mean, I know there's the throwing the hat over the fence and hustle, but
Yeah.
but what would a good bulk be? Like, what do you like to have from people before you get them going?
at least 6 episodes. We really like to have 6 episodes
Done.
Yeah, done.
Gotcha.
2 weeks before they launch their show.
Gotcha.
And then they can keep up with that schedule. If they're committed, then it's easy to work. Like they're ready. They know what the schedule is going to be like. We're going to be doing the 2 episodes for the next 6 weeks.
So you're at least 2 weeks ahead of them.
Yeah.
Right, so they give you everything that you have. So if
Exactly.
someone's wanting to do this, if they built their first 2 weeks worth of content, got it all tied in and dialed together, the RSS feeds, they could submit that all up at once, and then they start working on week 3 as week 1 comes down the pipe.
Right.
And they're
Yeah.
working on week 4 as week 2 comes down the pipe, and it gives a little cushion just in case.
Yeah.
Because life happens.
Everyone needs that time. It's crazy how many people find it really hard to.
And almost everybody destroys an interview within the first
Yeah,
6
there's
or 10
always
episodes.
It just falls
issues and
apart.
problems.
It's just
yeah.
either like you didn't select the right microphone or you
Forgot to hit record.
forgot to hit record.
Did I hit record on this? Oh, record's going. Good. I mean, we've all done
That's actually a very common problem.
Yeah, it's like the little things.
Especially on your nerves with your first ones, it's hard to be really cool.
I really like the idea especially for kind of the viewers that we have on this channel here, is like the process of going through and editing your own, taking notes for the show notes, because you can transcribe it, but you can also turn it into a really cool blog post to make it a multimedia post. That's going to be great for organic Google SEO.
Yeah.
But then it lets you listen to yourself, and it lets you kind of get better at the art of interviewing or conversing or
Yeah.
just delivering content audibly, and that's really powerful. I think anybody who's watched this channel, if you haven't watched my first video, go back, look how effing awkward I am. It was terrible, right? And it's
Yeah.
literally, it's like working out. It hurts, it's awkward, but then if you do it enough over a condensed period of time, it gets easier and easier. So if you guys have 2 sides to what you do, right? So V, you seem to run like the production company for kind of like professionals and businesses who want to like establish themselves in. Do you work with many solo entrepreneurs on that side as well?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so where do people find out more about working from you if they just want to record and they're like, my time is too valuable to go through all the bits and pieces, I just want to record something, send it off, and make sure it's done right? Where would they find you?
So, freedompodcasting.com/submit / start.
So
Yeah.
freedompodcasting.com / I'll put a link to that below here, and that's like the white glove treatment. And you have different ranges, right?
Yeah.
Depends on how much production value they want, or is it all pretty?
We pretty much go for people who want it all done. If it's like a mixture of they want to do certain things, we can work with them sometimes, but for the most part, we like people who want to have their hands off of the production.
Right. Record something great
Yeah.
with someone they know. They get to leverage their network. They get to leverage the people they know in the interviews. That's great positioning to show them being interviewed or interviewing great people.
Yeah.
hands off, go back to making money. You guys take care of the rest.
Right.
Freedom Podcasting.
And we also work with like universities and banks and things like that. That's some of our
big establishments.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool. And then so for the kind of like hands in the dirt kind of DIY folks, Ian, you've created a course?
Yeah. So I just had a course where I just made a podcast. I started it from scratch. I plugged in the equipment on the camera, and then I go in and do ScreenFlow casts of the whole thing. So I build a WordPress blog, I set up Libsyn hosting, I built the RSS feed, and it's all like zoomed in, really high value. Like you can follow along with this thing.
So literally step by step by step by step.
Yeah.
If you follow along with it and do everything, but at the end you will be on iTunes.
Gotcha.
And if you didn't, then you just didn't stop following the directions.
Right. And you show hardware, the mics you use, the mixers if there's mixers, like all the steps.
Everything.
If somebody wants to record a Skype interview, like all those components
Skype
are built
in there. I also even did an Audacity tutorial for people, because Audacity is the one that works on Mac and PC.
For people on those PC
so
things.
people on those PCs,
Isn't Audacity free?
Yeah,
Audacity is 100% free. So he literally even shows you how to use a free software tool,
and
a $90 microphone, and then a WordPress blog, which we've already got the host. We've covered WordPress a lot, and then this. I mean, it dovetails so well to an organic SEO campaign in my eyes. I mean, it's a great way to generate content quickly, and I think people who listen to content feel a closer connection than people who simply read content. And with this day and age of so many people, I mean, everyone has a computer/podcast machine in their pocket. We're recording a video on ours, but like the amount of time people are on the trains, or like Ian, how do you said recently, we were just talking at lunch.
The dishes!
Doing dishes. Like that's Ian. Ian pops in the headphones and listens to a 20-30 minute podcast while doing the dishes. I've been doing the same thing for a while as well. Road trips, driving, commuting. I mean, there's so many of these like 20-30 minute periods of time where we can turn this into kind of like brain food.
Yeah.
And the trick is for you to flip the script and become a publisher, right? Because the goal is to publish more than we consume. So this is a great way and a method. If you're not comfortable on camera, you don't want to do the YouTube thing, that's great. But a lot of podcasters do take their audio podcast and just put it up to YouTube, right? With like
you can do that,
a cover image.
There's a new tool that makes it so that you just upload your MP3 and an image.
And an image. And it makes it for you. So you could literally build out a WordPress blog with written content for Google. You could do a podcast, right? And that could be the generation point. That can get iTunes triggering in your favor and get you a close-knit kind of connection with your audience. And you could be building a YouTube channel all at the same point.
Yeah.
Just by simply starting with kind of an audio thing. So Ian, where would they find that course if they want to learn more about that?
It's just go freedompodcasting.com. It's at the bottom.
It's at the bottom of Freedom Podcasting.
I'm always running different coupon codes and things like that. So if people get it from any of those places, then there's that. But then we can also set up a page. We'll put something in the link with
description
with Miles to make it so that
cool.
You can get him credit, and then you can also get a discount on the
awesome.
The course.
And that's for the do-it-yourselfers if you want that guide of how to get going one way or another, because ultimately it's really just about finding a method that you're comfortable with and creating content and then doing it over and over
and over consistently and over and over and over.
I mean, you've seen podcasts go from 0 downloads brand new to like
it's all about consistency. Everything's always about consistency, right? As podcasting is exactly the same.
It is. Well, I thank you guys very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Any last thoughts or any other words of encouragement for people who are getting started in business and looking at podcasting as an opportunity to grow an audience?
I'd say like there's no rules, just have fun with it. The people I see that do really well with podcasting do whatever is fun for them. So. And the jacuzzi. It sounds really good.
It is. It's snowing. We gotta go. We gotta run. So do what you love. Share it with the world. Podcasting is a fantastic way to get that out. We're gonna put some links for you to be able to contact these two down below. Thank you very much for your time. Click the subscribe button if you have not already. I've got some new cool videos coming out for you next. And give me a thumbs up here. Give all 3 of us a thumbs up here inside of YouTube. We do appreciate it. And I will catch you on the next video. Until then.